Tell me what the AfD is offering to people and why you think that's become increasingly popular.
Well, pretty much all we are really saying is let's approach politics once again with common sense. What is good for the country? What is good for the people? Should we flood our country with millions and millions of so-called asylum seekers, 99.9% of which are young men of fighting age? Should we really do this, right? Should we deindustrialize our nation? I mean, Germany, we don't have any natural resources. Our resources, it's always been our brains, our ingenuity, our, engineers, that type. That was our resource, our only resource. We don't have natural resources. It's going to end in tragedy. It's going to end in poverty. That's pretty much what we're doing. We're already seeing that because a lot of industry, they are moving out of Germany because they no longer can afford to pay these energy prices, right? They're skyrocketing.
The deindustrialization of Germany seems like a marked, move towards insanity. Have this remarkable situation where China and India are industrializing at a rate that leaves Europe and its negligible effect on the environment in the dust, and increasingly so, and at an ever accelerating rate. All of the industry that's leaving Europe and the West in general is localizing in China and in India. China's building coal-fired plants at a rate that's just staggering.
Yeah.
And we all breathe the same atmosphere. The whole bloody climate change narrative is a scam and a lie.
It is a scam. So it's totally ridiculous. So we're tearing down our nuclear power plants, highest standard ever, and but we are buying now the nuclear power from France or Poland or the Eastern European countries because they're building nuclear power plants. Right. So I mean, anyone with 2 brain cells left intact really has to see how this is the biggest scam ever.
The climate change narrative, which the pathology of which I think was most amply demonstrated by the fact that it was once global warming and then it became climate change overnight, which is really quite something. Yeah. It's not warming up, it's increased variability. It's like, that's actually very different. And the fact that you're telling the same story with a completely different premise is extremely telling. And so then you might ask why, and I think it's the age-old story of the Pharisees, is that these meta-narratives, environmentalism in particular, but also concern for income distribution, they're ways of allowing people to claim a admirable reputation and morality while doing absolutely nothing except power-mongering on the basis of that claim, while doing absolutely nothing to deserve it. So George Orwell said decades ago that when he was speaking of the middle-class socialists, so the virtue signaling types, because he could never understand their motivations, or elite socialists, that they didn't like the poor, they just hated the rich.
Much,
Well, so there's been some psychological studies recently. I know of 3 papers that measured people's attitude towards fairness as a motivation, because that's usually the motivation, right, for income redistribution. It's only fair. Compassion and malicious envy.
Yeah.
Right. Fairness didn't predict support for income redistribution at all. 0. Compassion predicted a little bit, but the biggest predictor was malicious envy. Right? So it really is a destructive, it's a destructive ideology masquerading as compassion and worship of nature.
Right, exactly. Right? I mean, whenever, especially young people, they, like, God bless their hearts, they always think, no, the communists or the socialists, they're caring. Yeah. They're so caring for the poor people.
Yeah. Well, that's
they want to
lift
lift them out of poverty.
Yeah, right.
And, but it's really not true. What the communists or socialists actually do is they don't increase anyone's wealth. They do not contribute so that the overall income will actually increase. what they are doing is pretty much just manage the poorness more fairly. That's all they're doing, right?
They manage it more fairly temporarily.
Exactly.
You got a radically centralized Europe where the distance between the citizens and the government grew to like slave tyrant proportions.
Yes.
And so a hyper elite with disenfranchised people, that's what it looks like to me.
But you would have never been able to convince any single European people to relinquish their sovereignty, their traditions, to invest it in some kind of, let's call it a one world government or whatever you want to call it. Would have never happened. Would have never been possible. But hey, let's tell the people, look, we've been, having wars for centuries and we need to get away with that. So we, living peacefully. Let's try to move together closer, So how about we have this EU Commission installed in Brussels and, we have a parliament, so it's democracy and all of that. And so people were told this lie that because we are obviously incapable of living peacefully together unless we have some kind of a
king.
Exact, sort of, right? So, and that's how the people were sold this lie. And speaking of the EU Commission, what is the EU Commission? It's not elected. It's appointed pretty much. In 2013, I was, watching TV and there was some talk on TV about some new party being founded. And they were critics of the EU. They were critics of the euro. And I'm like, whoa, what is this? And I'm like, all ears, and listened to it for a while, turned off my TV and went on the internet, researched that party. And I was so glad to have finally found a party again that I felt represented by, that I decided, well, this time I'm not going to leave it up to anyone else to do the right thing here. And I decided to become a member. That very same night, filled out an application, and I've been a member of that party from the very beginning, 2013. And that's when it all started, right? Everything we have been saying ever since 2013, we weren't making that stuff up. We weren't fear-mongering. We were simply seeing where we were headed. And the people are now beginning to realize, whoa, they were right. They said that. That's what they said like 10 years ago. And here we are. So they're seeing all of this, the policies that have been implemented. They're seeing it unfolding and the consequences of these policies that were set a long time ago. They're seeing it now in their everyday life, and there is no denying it anymore. You can kind of, play with numbers in some kind of a budget or, in a balance sheet. You can hide certain things. What you cannot hide is your lived reality. And the lived reality in Germany, it really saddens me to say, but Germany is turning into a hellhole country. We're no longer safe on our streets.
Watch the full interview now on YouTube at Jordan B. Peterson.